Hello people of YouTube, my name is Brad. This is my channel Anime and Orange, and this week in 3D Metal Model News, starting as usual with Metal Earth. Their website, coming soon page, and what's new page has not changed from last week. I know several people have asked, and I'm sure everyone is curious, when the models on the coming soon page are going to be available. Metal Earth is kind of gotten away from, or has kind of gotten away from, giving specific times that models will become available, and I've kind of covered this before. I believe it stems from the fact that they do get their supplies from China here to the US and then distribute them in the US, and because the models aren't made here, it makes it more difficult for them to know when they're going to arrive and be able to be distributed. However, I have noticed on Twitter, on a response to someone posting about Deadpool, that they said Deadpool is set to be released this spring. That's probably as close as we're going to get to an actual time for it to be available, because honestly they don't always know when they're going to get their shipments that they're going to be able to distribute them. Last week we talked about a couple of new models from Pschool, and as expected, a little more information is now available for both of those models. We talked about the more copper band and the chimes, which is now listed as Zhang Hui chimes, H-O-U-Y-I chimes. Actually a couple of different, longer version of the name on one of their pages, but these chimes have been out before, and I meant to mention it in my last video that while Piececool is releasing these chimes, these bells, this is not the first time we've seen them in 3D metal model form. I believe MU has had a set of these chimes out for a while. Piececool is doing them now. We do have a release date of the 20th of March, 20th of this month. I would give it about a week after that release date before those models start showing up on places like Crazy Toys and AliExpress. And there are a few more pictures of each model, or each model has a few more pictures on one of the little side news information tabs, so we can see top-down view and close-up views of the more copper band, and we can see a couple of close-up and other views of the chimes as well. Looking around other places online, I'm finding one new model out there from MU. The first place I found it is crazytoys.co.uk, and is listed as the MU Fairy Sedan Flower Fan Shallow. Or at least that's the English translations. English translations can get interesting sometime. It is listed as being a brass, or the metal is listed as being brass. The finished size, once completed, 7.5 by 10.5 by 7.5 centimeters, which translates to 3 by 4.13 by 3 inches. It has 3 sheets, which are about 11 by 9 centimeters, which translates to 4.3 by 7.5 inches. 3 metal sheets, 101 pieces. Listed as difficulty of 4 out of 10 stars. And then on Crazy Toys AliExpress store, it's listed as $23 for the full box, and on the .co.uk website it's listed as £16.49. Interestingly enough, I found it on several other stores as well. Magical Model Store, New York Model Store, Superb Toys Store on AliExpress, and all of their listings have it with several different versions. You can get it with tools, you can get it with a display case, which is not unusual, but you can also get it with and without lights. I'm kind of thinking this model doesn't normally come with lights, because on the Crazy Toys site it doesn't show it as having an LED light. I'm guessing they're just selling an LED kit or light with it in case you wanted to light it up, though I could be wrong. But all the other stores are showing it at around $17.37 without LED, and about $18.36 with LED. Price may vary. I think that was on Magical Model Store, and the price may vary a little bit store to store, but a little bit more, and you can get an LED light with it. Whether or not that LED light is originally intended to come with it, or something the stores are just adding on, I'm a bit unclear on. And that's it for new models this week. Not a whole lot of news in that arena. One other thing that I wanted to add to today's video, something I've been thinking about adding, but I just kind of put it off for a while. Time for Machine, I talked about them about a year ago. They were running a Kickstarter, their second Kickstarter. If you don't know what Time for Machine is, they make metal models, but unlike Metal Earth, they're actually, most of them are mechanical and move in some fashion. A lot of them have like a clock mechanism where you can wind them up. I built the Marvel tank even before that Kickstarter, and had some trouble with it. It was a really neat model, much thicker metal, seemed to be overall a very quality model to build. They're a bit pricey, and I had some trouble with mine. I said one day I'd like to try it again. Well, they did a Kickstarter about a year ago, and I talked about it, I put it in my news videos, and I ended up actually contributing a small amount myself. They had at one time offered to send me each of their models after the Kickstarter was over for me to review. Nothing's come of that yet, but that offer was put out there. Nonetheless, I still contributed a little bit myself to get my own model, just because I thought they were really neat and had a lot of potential, and they were supposed to have improved on some of their older models. And I put in for, I believe it was the Marvel Tank 2, like an updated version, so because I want to give it another shot. And a long time has come, and Kickstarter is my first Kickstarter. I've known other people to do Kickstarters, and a lot of time can pass before you get the actual thing. There's almost always some sort of setback. It just happens. And with this particular, in this particular instance, there's been a huge setback. Like I said, this started a year ago, and over the past several months, I've been getting the occasional update about how things are going out, and they're behind schedule, but they're trying to do this and they're trying to do that. One of the things that happened for me here in the United States is, I want to say like half of the packages made it, and some of them just kind of disappeared. And I'm really kind of paraphrasing. This was update after update this went on. It started, supposedly a lot of the packages to the US were shipped out right before the Chinese New Year, but disappeared. And Time for Machine claimed to not know what had happened to that, and appeared to be doing what they could, but claiming that no information was available, while some of the people in the comments were saying that's ridiculous. Some information should be available. Why are you lying to us? And I don't know enough to argue whether or not this person is true or that person is true, which is part of the reason I've not said anything. But I was starting to get concerned because this stuff was supposed to have gone out like December, I think, and I realized stuff can take a while, and I realized the Chinese New Year is going to slow things down. I realized that this coronavirus thing is going to slow things down. But they didn't even have a tracking number. Without a tracking number, supposedly the stuff was sent and disappeared without a tracking number. That was very concerning. And was debating on making a comment about what was going on in this video. And I've already said, talked a lot longer than I had intended to, but I just got an email update that apparently a large percent of the packages for the United States that have been missing for a while, including mine, because I still haven't gotten my Kickstarter project. I still haven't got my model or any kind of tracking information, but apparently they've just announced that they have found the missing packages, the missing parcels. Dear backers, we'd like to inform you that we have finally traced our parcels. All this time they have been kept in a logistics hub in Russia. Basically, the email goes on to say that someone had tried to ship those out to a hub in Russia to avoid delay from the Chinese New Year, but somewhere along the lines they never told the proper people where it was shipped, and communication stopped. This is more or less according to what the Kickstarter people are saying. So for, what, 3 months now, there's been no word. They claim that none of their calls or requests for information have been responded to until now, and the stuff has been found. So they're pushing it out now. So if you're one of the people in the United States that has backed the Dazzling Steamliner, Heavenly Hercules, Marvel Tank 2, or Mysterious Timer 2, you're in the United States and you still haven't gotten yours, you're wondering what's going on, they just put out the update that apparently they found the packages and they're getting them pushed out now. So hopefully in the next few days we'll have at least some tracking information and maybe get our models soon, because that is one of the things I'm looking forward to taking a second attempt at. That was a mouthful. I was trying to make that quick, but yeah, I've been very frustrated, but try not to overreact to the fact that it has been a year now, and apparently my package, as well as many others, were just... But they've been found now, supposedly. I'm still a little bit skeptical, and hopefully there'll be more information soon. And that leads us to topic of the week. Last week's topic, I kept expanding upon engines and small engines, and I just went and basically said, speaking of motorcycles, we have the Kawasaki. What other brands would you like to see? Harley Davidson, maybe Indian motorcycles, etc., etc. And I admitted, or at least I tried to say, that I don't know a lot about motorcycles, but I wanted to put the question out there. And I received a number of responses. For instance, from Brandon, I would like to see a Harley Davidson Softail with sidecar or a Triumph Bonneville bobber. I've certainly heard of Harley Davidson Softails before, but I don't really know a lot about them. May have gotten in over my head here, but I've heard of Triumph, but don't know anything about them. Those definitely sound interesting. Hopefully someone from Metal Earth is watching this video and taking suggestions. Chris Thorpe, hi Brad. Similar to mentioned comments about the Tron light cycle, I would love to have a Bat Pod to complete my Batmobile collection. That sounds interesting. Do not know what a Bat Pod is either, because I'm not a very big Batman fan. Nothing against it. I've seen some of the movies, but that's about it. Shane Stribley, hi Brad. About this week's topic, I think a box set of the choppers from Easy Rider movie would be very cool. Cheers from Down Under. That's an interesting thought. Again, I've heard these names, but I don't really know anything about Easy Rider other than I've heard the name I've heard the name. Code Wookie, how about a BMW R75 motorcycle with sidecar? Bonus points if you can figure out the reference. You know, I could cheat and definitely Google that, and I thought about it, and I just didn't. I'm going to go take a wild stab and say that maybe that's some sort of Mission Impossible reference or other spy movie, but really I don't know. Lambo Star Aventador? This isn't real, but maybe they can make a bike from Tron or something. And kind of reading them in the order that it was given to me in YouTube, that was probably not in the order in which they were posted, but that's certainly where the Tron comment from earlier, Christopher Thorpe, I guess, was referencing, and I certainly made a comment on that. The Tron light cycle sounds like a really neat idea, especially one in color. It also makes me wonder if they could do some of the other models like the tank. I'm thinking more of the original Tron movie. You do maybe a recognizer or the carrier ship. I remember being rather young and seeing the Tron movie, the original Tron movie, after it had come out, and being rather impressed by the recognizer and trying to build a recognizer out of Legos. I don't know why, I just thought the recognizer was pretty cool looking back in the late 80s when I first saw it. Vicky P. They definitely still make Indian motorcycles. The FTR 1200 is one of their newer bikes, and I'd love to see it made into a bottle. If we're talking fictional bikes, Kenda's bike from the anime Akira is a pretty iconic one. Or Judge Dredd's bike. As far as the Indian motorcycle still being made, I made this comment on YouTube, but shows what I know about motorcycles. As far as the Kendra's bike from Akira or Judge Dredd, I've not seen Akira, but anime bike, that's probably pretty fascinating. And Judge Dredd's bike, I've not watched the original Judge Dredd. I probably have seen that somewhere, but that would be interesting. And then we have a comment from Max Musterman, not specifically related to the question, but the nation's greatest treasures. Seriously, I have no doubt now that Piececool has turned into a Chinese propaganda vehicle, but at least you got something different from there. I hate to be that guy, but Metal Earth is catering a bit too much to male nerds seeing only cars, planes, and Star Wars with the occasional license outlier. And I respect that comment. There was a survey, the reason I'm bringing this comment up, even though it's not directly related, is because I kind of wanted to touch on it. I remember maybe a year or so ago, somebody did a survey on the people who build these Metal Earth models. I talked about it in my video and tried to turn people to it to take that survey. And there was a lot of just questions asked about the kind of people that build these models. And one thing that surprised me is they asked about gender. And I do know a number of ladies who build these models. I've talked with them and seen their posts on Instagram and have asked a few of them questions and asked for their help. And I was really surprised that after the survey came out that there was a very small percentage of builders were actually female. I really thought it would have been at least an even percentage, if not slightly more female, because it's such a crafty thing. And I know at least one of the people that I'm thinking of is a jewelry, either a jewelry maker or repairs jewelry, and it just seems like those things would go hand in hand. So I was quite surprised that after that survey's results came out that there was such a small number, a small percentage of females, of ladies, building these models. And I bring that up because Metal Earth has done things that I dare say My Little Pony, maybe it was an attempt at aiming things toward the female population. I want to say there's been other models as well, but it just, I mean, the My Little Pony stuff, for instance, got discontinued. It got retired. If it's not selling, unfortunately, Metal Earth is not going to make it. So I'm not saying they could do more, they couldn't have done more, but it just seems like the information is out there that segment of builders is not, unfortunately, not very high, and might explain why there's a lot more male nerd stuff coming out. And Star Wars sales, male or female, Star Wars sales, I know a lot of people complain about Star Wars, and I get it, it's a very big percentage. But I remember it was honestly Star Wars that got me into building Metal Earth models, and the exposure through that had me doing a few others, but Star Wars remains my favorite ones to do. And I'm sure there's a lot of other people that have felt that way as well. I think Star Wars models kind of help put Metal Earth models on the map, and they continue to be popular and they continue to sell without a lot of extra effort. They have to be selling. I've never heard of I can't think of any time where I've heard of a Star Wars model being retired or discontinued. They just keep selling it, and Disney's picked up on it, and the Disney stores have made a big deal out of it. So the reality is they're going to go with what sells, and that may be an explanation as to why so many of these models are male nerd models, because that's the greater percentage of who's building them and the greater percentage of what sells. Of course, part of that's going to be contributed to the fact that if that's what's available, that's what people are going to buy. But there have been at least some other attempts, and they don't seem to have worked out. I feel like I should include that, because even though it's not part of the question, because I just feel like it was something that kind of needed to be touched on. So now I've got to try and think of an awkward segue into where I wanted to go next in today's video. One of the things that I wanted to apologize to my viewers, the fact that I didn't have any videos out this past week, any build videos. I have finished the 31 Model A, which I think may have become my favorite model over the three Ford models that I've done. I really like the first truck, and I was really looking forward to the 32 kind of Roadster, but that one was very difficult, and I'm liking it, but I'm really finished the 31, and I'm thinking it might become my favorite. But anyway, just a lot of things going on this past week. This significant other was back in town. She travels for work a lot, so I don't get to see her very often, and was back in town. And yes, I put everything aside for a couple of days to spend time with her, which was then immediately followed by a number of doctor's appointments, and for me and my kid, and just it wasn't time to finish those videos. And I do apologize for that. There are a lot of things going on, and I had kind of mentioned previously, maybe a month ago, that there may be some changes on the horizon, which I've kind of said that before, and then nothing really changed. But I've held off, and because of that I've held off saying any more. But kind of what's going on right now, I'm coming up close to my 3-year anniversary of the heart transplant. For those of you who don't know, I had a heart transplant 3 years ago. I've been doing these videos since before that, but there was a nice long pause there while I recovered. And I've continued to do these videos to keep myself busy. It's a hobby, and I get to share it with others. There's so many reasons why I'm doing what I do. But at any rate, the heart's been doing good. However, after the heart transplant, my kidneys went into failure, went straight into kidney failure. There was hope that that would get better, but after 6 months, that hope was gone, and I remained on dialysis. Went from acute renal failure to a more permanent chronic renal failure or something like that. However, over time I moved to home dialysis and peritoneal dialysis, and over time things slowly started to get better, and we've gotten to a point now after almost 3 years of dialysis that a lot of my kidney function seems to have come back. And they're actually running a test this weekend to see how much kidney function I have left. I'm not doing dialysis for the next 2 or 3 days. Normally I do it every night, but a small dose. And we're going to see how that goes. And there is some hope that I'll either won't need much dialysis or not need any dialysis at all. But remains to be seen. Blood work next Monday. Test results several days after that. We'll have to see how it goes. But that also means a lot of things for me personally are changing. I had made some attempts to go full-time back into the workforce. Job opening about a year ago that I mentioned, but it didn't happen. And it's time for me to try more seriously now to get back into full-time work. This channel, building these models, is a hobby, and I've never expected it to be something to support me. I appreciate Patreon supporters and everyone who's supported this channel, so that basically the finances for doing this don't come out of my own pocket. I'm able to make these videos to help others, or at least very little comes out of my pocket. But it was never intended to be a income to survive off of. I'm looking elsewhere for that. So there's quite the possibility over the next few days, weeks, things could start to change as I look for other employment. And it's almost certainly going to affect the time that I have to build these models. And of course I will try to keep some updates of what's going on as that comes, but the next week more time may be spent job hunting and possibly training and making phone calls and just trying to get things organized, information together to see what's the best path for me to take. There's a lot on my mind right now, not just because, well, there's a lot on my mind right now for a number of different reasons. Just, this is a big change in my life. There's the whole coronavirus concern on the horizon. Me being a transplant recipient, my immune system is lower than most people, so it's a bigger concern for me than it would be for most. That's weighing on my mind. How well I'm doing on dialysis and whether I need it, which is good news, but also the transition of, it's not that I'm afraid to go back to work, not at all. I'm afraid of finding the insurance when I go back to work to be able to pay for the medicines so that my heart doesn't reject, and the past 3 years was for naught. So that's pretty heavy on my mind and a bit distracting right now, but I'll do pretty much what I say at the end of every video, and I'm going to try and keep on keeping on. But thought it was a decent time to share that much of the information, what's going on with me personally. It seems like I'm doing better, and it's time for me to make some changes in the direction that I'm taking my life. This is not goodbye. Do not intend to just stop making these videos and stop building these models. It means that I'll probably have less time to do it, unfortunately. But if at all possible, I'm going to try and continue building models, recording it, making videos about it. But these other things do take a little bit of a priority. But speaking about Earth models, it's the whole reason we're here. One of the things that I was also thinking about over the past few days, when it comes to, my apologies for not getting a video out this past week. These things are all kind of loosely tied together. When I first started building these Metal Earth models took 2.5 hours or less to build. It varied by model. There were models I could do in an hour, hour and a half, but models that would take 2.5 hours. There were models that took 20-30 minutes. Legends models came out, and most of those took around 15 to 20 minutes, depending. But for the longest time, 2.5 hours was like the max for just about any Metal Earth model, except for like Iron Man and War Machine, which I think pushed it to somewhere between 3 and 6. And anything over 2.5 hours, you're talking Iconics. The Iconic stuff was generally longer, although there's probably a Iconics or two that I could do in 2.5 hours. That was when you started to spend more time on these models. But over the past, say, year or so, that's slowly begun to change. Honestly, longer than that. If you look at just the Star Wars lineup, because Star Wars has been going for quite a while, if you look at the original models, the X-Wing, the R2-D2 models, the Millennium Falcon models, those took around 2 hours to do most of those models. And then as time went on, we started getting some things like the ATST Walker and Slave 1, and those models were taking like 3.5 hours to do, give or take. They were more complicated, and we started getting into Rise of Skywalker and Solo movie models, and again we're talking like 3 and 4 hours to build those models. And now we've got the latest Star Wars models that came out, like the Yori's Y-Wing and the Sith TIE Fighter, and those models took like 6 hours or more to put together. There was so much detail, so much in those models, and so much to them that honestly, those new Star Wars models, the Y-Wing and the Sith TIE, and I think the Speeder, which I haven't done but I've heard about, those are on the level now what Iconics was 2 or 3 years ago, if not higher. The Zori's Y-Wing has more detail and took more time than the Iconics Millennium Falcon did. So that's how much things have changed. And I used to be able to put out 2 to 3 build videos a week if I set my mind to it, because I could sit down and build 2 different models in one sitting in one afternoon. And those days are gone. Those days are pretty much gone, unless I dig up something that's older that I just hadn't gotten to yet. Actually, 2 things that are older, because I'm doing good to put out a new build video and review video every week. Now, part of that's changed because I've changed. Originally, it was all build and review all in one video, and I've separated them out because some people are more interested in just the review and the shorter videos. But it's taking me longer to build it, which then takes longer to edit and longer to get it out there. And overall, I think this is a good thing. These models have so much more detail and color, and they're just even more amazing than they were before, and that's fantastic. But it worries me that we might be reaching a level of complexity that's going to alienate a few viewers or a few builders who might say this has just gotten too complex, and I can't or I don't want to do this anymore. So, after that long speech, I guess what I'm interested in for you is, what do you think about it? Have you seen this increasing complexity and detail, and what do you think about it? Do you think that Metal Earth's going in a good direction? Should they keep going more and more detail? Do they need to back off? What are your thoughts and feelings about especially those of you who have been doing this for several years? What are your thoughts and feelings about where Metal Earth seems to be going with things being more detailed and complex? Leave your comments down below, and I'll be excited to read them next week. I think I'm gonna leave it at that and go start editing this video. As always, thank you for watching. Thank you to my Patreon supporters for continuing to support this channel. And as always, keep on keeping on.